Hi, my name is Christina Lynn. My business is Lynn Financial. I love to talk about money because financial savviness is a learned skill that you can master. What I want to talk to you today about is how to master the GRE in your 30s. I have 9 tips for you. It's a little bit off topic from what I usually cover, but I thought it might be useful to you if you are in your 30s and are taking the GRE. So to get started, I would recommend booking a GRE appointment a month out in advance or a month out from the time that you want to start studying. I think 1 month of studying is enough time before you hit that burnout point in order for you to get a maximum score. Now, when you're on the ETS website registering for the GRE exam, I would recommend not to purchase any of like the add-on practice exams or any of the other material that they offer on their website. I did purchase some, and I'm going to go into what I would recommend instead, but just a heads up that I wouldn't recommend those products when you're registering for your exam. So hold on for the tip regarding that. So tip number 1 is to figure out the areas that you need to focus your study on. And you do this by taking a practice test. And you can take a practice test for free. Just Google GRE practice exam, and you will find a couple different sources where you can take a full-length test and they will give you your scores back, not on the analytical writing, I don't think, but on like the verbal reasoning and the quantitative reasoning. They'll give you your scores back, and you'll be able to determine based on those scores which you need to focus on. When I did this step, I learned that my quantitative reasoning was the area that I need to focus the most on. I've been out of school for so long, as are you if you're in your 30s, that I forgot a lot of the math formulas, like the quadratic equation. I don't remember them all, but like I couldn't even remember the rules about triangles and all the factoring rules. So I really needed to focus on brushing up on some of those math formulas. So the practice test that I took indicated that that was the area that I needed to study the hardest at, and it was worth the effort to know that that is what I should be focusing on. So take that practice test. All right, tip number 2 is the type of study material that I recommend. So back in the beginning, I said don't purchase the exams on the ETS website. So I had done that. I had purchased, I think, $40 worth of practice exams, and after going through it, I realized that that was not a good use of money because what I really needed wasn't to put myself in the exam scenario and take all those practice questions. What I really needed was the math skills being refreshed. So I needed to actually study what the formulas were versus just taking practice questions and seeing if I could get the answer right. I needed to like actually see the recipe to the formulas. So, and maybe there's a way to do that with these practice tests, but I couldn't figure that out. But what was really helpful is I went to the library and I checked out the newest version of some sort of GRE prep. This one is a Kaplan. It was great, although I did find mistakes in it. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm finding mistakes in the book. But anyway, the book was really helpful because it walked through all of those math exams, the formulas that I have forgot. I really needed to see practice problems and then with the example answers. I didn't know how to get from the practice questions to just the answer. I really needed to see how they did the work in order to get the answer so that I could then do it on my own come test day. So I found this book to be really helpful. I'm sure there are other good brands of books that are GRE prep, but I would recommend going this big fat traditional book route versus just the practice test. And I did get it from the library because it was free and I don't need to have it afterwards, so it doesn't need to sit in my library. This actually was a surprising tip for me because normally when I'm taking exams like this, the best route for me is to actually just purchase the practice exams online and just hammer out those questions until my score lifts. But with the GRE, it was different because I actually needed to see the work with the math equations, how they got to the answer so that I could then replicate it on my own. Tip number 3, I then put on my calendar, I'm such a to-do list person, I put on my calendar for all the to-dos of the day 30 minutes of GRE study. So for 1 month, I had that listed on my things to do for the day, um, the 30 minutes studying for the GRE. And then the last week before the GRE, I bumped it up to 1 hour of study time. I don't know exactly how much that comes out to. It's probably a little bit more than 20 hours of study, which they say, I think they say 20 to 40 hours of study for the GRE is good. And that was a sweet spot for me because I felt like by the end I was kind of burning out, but I needed to space it out like that because it was better for me to retain the information rather than just cramming the week before. So space out your study time the whole 30 days prior to your exam. So the last 5 tips are going to be the day of the test. Tip number 4 is to get a full 8 hours of sleep the night before the GRE test. This is important because we all learned from our undergrad experience that staying up late or like even pulling an all-nighter before a big exam is not the best way to approach it. You're not going in with a fresh mental outlook on the situation, and you're not going to be answering the questions with a clear mind. And so get a full night's rest prior to the exam. Tip number 5, the morning of. I scheduled my exam at 12:30 p.m. so that I would have the morning to kind of relax and get in the flow and not be rushed in any way. So I woke up without an alarm. I did a little bit of prep, so I did a little bit more math homework. And then I focused on I had just written down some of the equations and formulas that I really needed to focus on that seemed to be important and that I wanted to remember in the test. I reviewed those to really get them in here and get them memorized so that right away when I sat down to take the test, I could write down the formulas again and have that kind of as my cheat sheet as soon as the test started. I also wanted to be at my maximum level of efficiency, so I knew that I had to get my blood pumping a little bit, get the energy stirred up. And so I went for a brisk 2-mile walk. I didn't want to be totally tired, but I also wanted to have the blood flowing. So that walk took care of it. And by this time, the nerves were kind of bubbling up because this is a big exam. The school that you're trying to get into is a big deal to you. There's a lot of pressure on you, but it's so important to not let that pressure cloud your mental sharpness, which can easily happen. So I took some time to relax, get in the zone, ground myself so that I would be functioning at my 100%. And I did this through relaxing. I took a bath. I love baths to relax. And I also did some meditation. If you're not a meditating type of person, all you're doing is you're just sitting there for maybe 20 minutes, relaxing, not thinking, just kind of focusing on your breath. You just want to quiet your brain so the brain isn't going all excited for the test. You just want to take a minute to be quiet. And the last thing with this tip number 5 is to drink lots of water. Whatever you need to do to pamper yourself and get your brain and body in the optimal shape possible, do that. Tip number 6, what you need to wear the day of. This might be a really basic one, but it's important because you are in that testing facility for like 5 hours. It's a long time. And so you want to wear something that is really comfortable sitting down. Sometimes you get hot, sometimes you get cold. I'm not sure how that happens, if the temperature fluctuates or if your body temperature gets hotter based on what activity you're doing. But you want to be able to take a sweatshirt off, put it back on if you get cold. You don't want the waist to be very tight because you're sitting for a long time, make sure, I'm short, I'm 5'2.5", so make sure that you get your chair down so that your feet are really supported on the floor. You don't want them to be like dangling because you'll lose blood flow. So make sure whatever you're wearing is really comfortable. And also wear, if you have something that like gives you good luck, or so you believe, wear that. Like I wore my lucky shoes. I wear my Zero running shoes because they make me so happy and I feel like they're lucky. So if you have something like that, a little good luck charm, wear that. You're not gonna be able to bring anything into the room because they check pockets. They even have like a metal detector that they use. So you can't actually like bring in a lucky charm, but if you have something special like a comfy sweatshirt that you always wear that you feel good in, wear that. All right, tip number 7 is kind of hilarious, but I think it's helpful. When you get to the testing center, walk around the building. Why do I say this? Because of your mindset. I think I'm getting better as I get older and by not getting too freaked out about big tests like this, but it's still a lot of pressure. You really want to do well, so it's kind of inevitable that the nerves are creeping up on you, but it's so important to have a strong mindset when you go into this. And I think I hadn't always done well on standardized tests in the past. So I had a bit of a fear of going into a building to take a standardized test. And I wanted to just squash that this time. So what I did is I walked around, I said a prayer. If you're, whatever is your thing, do that. But the reason for the walking around is mentally you see this is just a building. It's no big deal. I can do this. You see that it's just a small thing and you got this. So I encourage you to do that. That was helpful to me to really get my mindset in the right place. And my tip number 8 is do not sit when you go into the sitting room. They had called me ahead of time and said, you need to be there at least 30 minutes early, 45 minutes would be better. So I showed up like 45 to 60 minutes early, and they kept coming out into the waiting room saying, oh, have a seat, fill this out, just sit here. And they really seemed to be emphasizing the point that I should be sitting down, not standing up. So they came out and told me that 3 times at least to sit down. And each time I didn't listen to them, I stood up. So I got this tip from a TED Talk that I listened once to. I don't know if you've heard it, but she talks about like the physiological magical thing that happens when you just make yourself bigger. And so when you're sitting down with your legs crossed and just like making yourself small, you're not doing yourself any brain favors. By making yourself big, and you can't see me, but I'm like spreading my legs and putting my arms on my hips like Wonder Woman, you are doing your brain a favor because you're making yourself larger. And so there's some sort of like chemical thing that's going on that is making your body feel and act more confident when you stand at the Wonder Woman attention. So I would encourage you, do not sit when they're telling you to sit down and wait for your exam. You're going to be sitting in the same spot, not moving a muscle for 4 hours. There's no reason that you should be sitting in the waiting room for an additional 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And my 9th and final tip for you, 30-something-year-old, taking the GRE, awesome job, is during the 10-minute break. So there's 6 sections of the GRE, so you get a break right in the middle. And I would absolutely take that. Do not sit through your break. You need to pep talk your body a little bit and get the blood flowing, wake up your limbs. It will be you're going to be doing your brain a favor by doing your body a favor. Bring a healthy snack. I forgot to bring a snack and I didn't have lunch before I did it. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was hungry. And so I would encourage you to have a healthy little snack that you pack in your locker. You can't go back out to your car and get it, so make sure that you put it in with like your purse and your phone in the little locker that they give you, so that you can have a quick bite to eat. You don't want a big meal or anything because you don't want to make yourself tired, but just a little nourishment to get your blood sugar spiked for the following 2 hours. Don't eat any candy or anything not healthy for you because you don't want that blood sugar to crash after you're sitting down for the next 30 minutes because you have 2 more hours to go at this point. So you need a healthier snack that's going to keep your blood sugar maintained um, and elevated for the next 2 hours. And this is kind of silly, but during my 10-minute break, I also did some silly little girly exercises just to get the blood flowing and get my heart rate kind of up before I went back into that room and sat in a chair for 2 hours. Whew, see? It seems so silly, but like I just feel refreshed. I have the blood flowing to my typing fingers and to my head, so I'm ready to sit back down and go for another 2 hours now. I'm so proud of you for having the courage to take the GRE after you have been out of school for a while, you 30-something-year-old, so you're going to do awesome. I actually saw when I did my research that people in their 30s or older actually perform better on the GRE than the younger people. So I don't know why that is. Maybe we just have more of a knowledge base or we're just more comfortable in our own skin and can handle the nerves better. But you're going to do great, and I'm excited for you, and I wish you the best on your academic journey.